everybody, and thanks for joining us for a conversation with the great Wilson Cruz. My name is Jim Farmer. I'm the Outreach Director of GALECA, the Society of LGBTQ Entertainment Critics.
And everyone, I'm Anthony Allen Ramos. I am the Vice President of Communications and Talent for GLAAD, the world's largest LGBTQ media advocacy organization. And I am equally excited for this conversation today.
I'm going to read a bio of Wilson, and then we're going to jump into some questions. Iconic actor, producer, and activist Wilson Cruz is currently wrapping up the 5th and final season of Star Trek Discovery. As Trekkers know, Wilson stars as the gay and married Dr. Hugh Culber on the GLAAD and Outfest award-winning Paramount Plus hit. He also stars in the just-out Netflix rom-com Mother of the Bride with Brooke Shields and Benjamin Bratt, and just completed voicing in season 2 of Hulu's The Bravest Knight, one of the first animated shows to include queer main characters. Wilson has also starred in such standout series as Party of Five, Eastsiders, Noah's Ark, and the upcoming sequel Noah's Ark, The Ronin Chronicles, 13 Reasons Why, Grey's Anatomy, and lots more. As many GALECA members know, he also executive produced the acclaimed Dorian Award-nominated docuseries Visible, out on television. His next docuseries, Not Part of the Plan, will follow the lives of 4 queer teen Mormons. For all of his brave roles and commitment to advancing all of our LGBT communities, especially Black and Latino communities, Wilson earned GLAAD's highest honor, the Vito Russo Award, in 2022. He's also been honored with the Matthew Shepard Foundation's Make a Difference Award. Early in his career, he received lots of attention and awards for his beautiful and authentic performance as queer teen Ricky Vasquez on ABC's groundbreaking high school drama, My So-Called Life. Playing Claire Danes' bestie 30 years ago, Wilson was the first out actor to play an out main character in a primetime series. Wilson has also been a national spokesperson for GLAAD, and today, as chairman of the board of GLSEN, he pushes to lift up, advance, and protect America's LGBTQ school students. He also lobbies for gun control, an issue important to all of our communities, and women's rights as well. Thank you, Wilson, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm really honored to be here with all of you.
I mean, Wilson, that is hearing all of that bio, so many, it's like the greatest hits of all. I love it. And obviously, you and I have known each other a really long time, and we just were hanging out over the weekend. But I want to, I'm going to, warning, this conversation is going to be a career encompassing conversation. And I encourage all of the members that are joining to have questions at the end. But let's start with the present, Wilson. I want to the good news. Mother of the Bride, it's a hit. Netflix, 30 million people, probably more, have already watched it. So much fun. I think when I saw it, I was like, I need just a really good, feel-good rom-com. I mean, how cool is it to be a part of this project? We've mentioned Brooke Shields, Benjamin Bratt, so many others.
Yeah, I mean, Rachel Harris, Michael McDonald. Yeah. I mean, all these really fantastic people. I mean, listen, it was this little movie that we all made because it was Benjamin Bratt and Brooke Shields, and they asked us to go to Thailand. So we were like, yeah, that sounds like fun. And honestly, like after, 5 seasons of saving the universe, it was, and all of those high stakes, it was nice to have some lower stakes, and they invited me to put on my swimsuit and drink something fun by a pool. I was like, okay, yeah, I can do that. And I got to be funny. And, I don't think any of us expected it to be the huge hit that it has become. I was literally on the subway on my way home just now, and, numerous people were telling me how much they enjoyed it. And I think part of the reason that it's resonating right now is A, it came out on Mother's Day, right? I mean, everybody loves their mom. And B, these are anxious times, and we could all use a little levity and some frivolity and some beauty in our lives. And I think the movie provided that. So I'm thrilled to see it be so well received.
1000%. And before I hand it over to Jim, I just want to say there's been a lot of conversation about Benjamin Bratt and his physique, but I'm like, don't forget about Wilson. Wilson's had the abs for 50 years, so you look pretty good too. Don't forget.
Thank you,
anyone,
Anthony.
You should tune in for just that.
Thank you. I appreciate. I'm sure all of my acting teachers are really thrilled at that. But no, thank you. I work hard.
Wilson, you have so much going on. Can you talk a little bit about, you're part of another queer couple on The Bravest Knight. Can you sort of talk about that show, and what do you think the appeal is?
You know, I feel like the appeal for me is what so many people find in it, is that we have so many queer families now. We have so many queer people having kids, and here is this really lovely project. We just did the second season, and the first season was so well received, where you have these two dads who are doing their best to raise this young girl, and make her the best possible person they possibly can. And they use the stories of one of their dads who's a knight, because she will eventually become a knight herself. And so there are all of these life lessons involved, and it's told in such a beautiful way, and has this amazing cast, especially these guest stars throughout both seasons. So I think it's fun for queer families, but not just for queer families, for anybody who's raising a young person and wants an easy way to teach them these really important life lessons.
I know that Jim is going to want to talk about My So-Called Life, and I desperately want to talk about Discovery, because like we are in the moment right now. The final,
it's happening.
It's happening. A new episode's available right now on Paramount Plus. We still have a little bit to go, but I think about, you know, what this show has meant to so many fans. The Star Trek universe is loud and loyal, and I think this has been obviously so important for all of us. But for you, I mean, I can only imagine what it was like wrapping up this, you know, a 5-season, and then, you know, we get to see it now. How are you feeling knowing that, you know, we're getting closer to the end of this?
It's bittersweet, right? Like, I think, you know, it's sad that it's ending. I think I'm at least happy that we're ending on such a high note. I think this is one of our best seasons, if not our best season. I was allowed to do some really amazing work on it. I was given some opportunities to really stretch my wings, spread my wings, and it's been really satisfying. You know, not without its heartbreak, in the sense that I'm going to miss those people and working with them every day. But you know, I think it has afforded me an opportunity to really show what I can do, to become a better actor by doing it, to really fight and advocate for this character, who I really felt was important, you know, not just for the queer community, but for Latinos and Afro-Latinos especially. This character is the best of us, and he is the idealized version of who I feel like I would like to become. And he's been through a lot. And, you know, he's also the most empathetic and caring person on the crew. And, you know, the fact that he has been allowed to, after his death, spoiler alert, to come back and create the life that he deserves with his family and his husband, and become a better doctor and take on counseling. You know, you know, I've talked about this in the past. It's really a love letter to all of my friends who, in the 90s, were diagnosed with AIDS and were given a death sentence. And suddenly, after spending all of their life savings and coming to terms with their own mortality, were given a second chance at life, and took that opportunity to say, hey, you know, what parts of my life still worked? What parts of it didn't work? What do I want to do with the time that I have now been given? And he does that. And I'm so proud of the man that he ends up becoming. And you know, even though we didn't know it was the last season of the show, it really is the ending of that major arc for him, because at the end of this season, we really see in his face that he really has entered a satisfying moment in his life where he feels like he has completed and understands his place in the world.
Very beautifully said. Thank you so much for that.
Can you talk a little bit about the fact that you and Anthony Rapp, two out actors, are playing these characters, and why that is so significant?
I've thought a lot about this. Anthony and I both started very young. And, we come from a generation that was still, as you all know, working towards equality. And I think what we bring to our work as journeyman actors who cobbled together this career that was not easy, especially for me, as a person of color, additionally, that in all of our work, we brought the resilience that it takes to deal with the trauma of being a queer person at that time. We grew up at a time, like I was saying earlier, with AIDS, where, when we were becoming sexual beings, aware of our sexuality, we were also being told that it would kill us. So that trauma, I think we bring the understanding of that, but we also bring the euphoria and gratitude when there is queer joy in our lives, because we never expected it. And so when it arrives in our characters' lives, when the trauma finds our characters, we bring an understanding of that to that work that I don't think a straight actor could possibly understand. And when you bring us together on this show, we bring all of that with us. And it doesn't have to be spoken. It's in the way that we relate to each other. It's in the way that we create this relationship. And what I really love is that he and I never sat down and like mapped out this relationship. We just said, well, we've known each other for 27 years. And we just said, you know what? We have a mutual love and respect for each other in real life. Let's take that and use that as a foundation for this relationship and expand on it. And it really worked. He made me a better actor, made me more confident in the work that I do. So it's been a really incredibly satisfying and rewarding experience with him.
Wilson, there are, thinking about, we mentioned, when you received the Vito Russo Award, which is, of course, named for a co-founder of GLAAD, for all that you do as an advocate, as an activist. There's plenty of actors that are, they're like, I'm an actor, I want to do the craft, but I'm not, not going to say anything. I don't want to get involved in issues. You clearly, that's not the case. You have made it your legacy to continue to push for what's right, whether it's for the community, like we said, for women's rights and beyond. How do you balance that as someone who is an actor and who also really wants to do good in the world and fight for what's right?
I'm still figuring out the balance part. I'll be honest with you, but I think I'm still a person in the world. Yes, I'm an actor and I'm an artist and I love what I do, and it's something that I work hard at. It's something that I've worked towards, but I still live in the world and I'm still affected by everything that happens in it. And I've said this before, but we all live in revolutionary times. This is a moment in human history, and at least in America, where we are having a conversation about the expansion and understanding of love and gender. And as a queer man and a queer man of color, I want to be a part of that conversation. And I want to make sure that when I leave here, that I've left the movement towards a better understanding in a progressive place, that the generations that are coming behind me and behind us are left in a better place than I found myself in, so that they have less trauma that they're dealing with on an everyday basis, that they find themselves finding more joy in their lives. How am I making their lives easier? And so that's why I've been at GLSEN all these years. It's why I worked at GLAAD, because I understood and still understand that our stories are the way that we reach people's hearts and minds. It's why I produce these documentary series, because I understand the power of television. At GLSEN, I want to make sure that people are having a better school climate than I had or Ricky Vasquez had. That's important because that's how we make better citizens. So, you know, the short answer to your question is, I think this is part of my responsibility as a queer human being right now. This is what we do. It was done for me by my elders. They made my life better. So how am I going to leave this place better when I'm done? The balance part, you know, I have a therapy session right after this. You know, sometimes on Sunday, I close those blinds and I put on a musical and I, you know, try to release it all.
Wilson, my so-called life had such a huge impact on my life and so many others. In it, you became the first openly gay actor playing an openly gay role on series television. Can you talk about how that series changed your life and the impact it's had?
First of all, you know, I didn't even know I was the first openly gay actor to play an openly gay role while I was doing it. I didn't even find that information until I produced Visible, and we were researching, and one of the editors came to me and said, "Did you know?" And I was like, "That's God, you have to keep researching because that can't be true." And it turned out to be true. How did it change my life? In innumerable ways. You know, I've talked about this extensively. My father and I and our relationship was non-existent when I started filming that series. And that show brought my father back into my life because, like I said about television and art, it is how we reach people's hearts and minds. And it reached my father. He was able to watch that show and understand me and my experience a bit better. And it opened a door for us. When you start your career with masters like Marshall Herskovitz and Ed Zwick and Winnie Holzman, it forces you to raise your own bar. And when you are acting opposite a savant like Claire Danes, it forces you to raise the bar. It made me a better actor. It taught me how to do television. I came from the theater. I was 19 years old. I remember one day Marshall Herskovitz came to me in an early episode and said, "Everything you're doing is right, but you're doing it as if you were on a stage. And I just want you to do everything you're doing, but think it instead, and trust that your face will express it." And I was like, "What?" And that was a huge lesson for me, that I could trust that being in the moment, and that being in the moment was enough, and that I was enough. I always felt I had to do more in order to succeed. And in that moment, through that lesson, I understood that I didn't have to do or be any more than I already was in order to convey what I needed to convey. And I've carried that lesson throughout my career. So it changed me in so many, and just having played Ricky Vasquez and having him experience everything he experienced, that some of which paralleled my own life, was a cathartic experience. It allowed me to leave so much of that trauma from childhood on that stage, in that studio, and go on with my life, because I felt like it was of service. I got to experience it, walk away from it, and let those stories affect people. And you can't ask for more than that as an actor.
I've got one last question, and then we'll open it up to the guests. Because Wilson, you know, thinking about Visible and the project that you have coming up with about the Mormon teens not part of the plan, and I think you had mentioned about with Discovery how you were able to bring ideas and feel heard and thoughts on how it would play out. Do you feel that we're finally in that kind of era where Hollywood creators can be like a little more collaborative when it comes to, you know, things that you want to bring to the table or the stories that you want to tell with what you make? Because I think for obviously so long it was like actors were supposed to show up and then just read the lines and then not have any feedback.
Well, yes. But here, yes, and you know, like I said earlier, when you start your career with Marshall, Ed, and Winnie, who are collaborators, who listen to their actors, who want to hear from their actors, who see them as collaborators, it set me up, right? So like I would show up on set and have ideas and thoughts, and I think people were willing to listen to me because of the way I approached it, right? I didn't come in, you know, barreling through the door and demanding anything. I came in wanting to make it better, and I think it was received in a better way. I think about the West Wing. When I did the West Wing, I was collaborative on there on Ally McBeal, even though I would never do that show today or play that role today. You know, I had some input on the way that character was played. You know, Party of Five. I mean, I can go on and on. I think because we are the experts of our community, we are listened to more now. We bring our expertise and our knowledge and our lived experience to these pieces of art, to these performances, and I think we have arrived at a moment where people are more willing to hear us. Now, that doesn't mean that we're where we need to be, and it doesn't mean that we are as ubiquitous. Our stories are not as ubiquitous as they should be, but we're getting there. And I think the work that GLAAD does is helping us get there. I think the more that our stories become varied helps us get there. You know, in terms of these documentaries, you know, it's really heartening to me to hear that people want the story told, and you know, this is the topic of the moment, right? You know, queer young people, especially our trans and non-binary youth, are under attack, and there are networks and streamers and executives who want to give them a voice so that they can tell their own stories. And this new documentary is an opportunity for them to do that.
Well, thank you for that. We're looking forward to that. Jim, shall we open it up? I'm sure some of these amazing folks have some questions, so don't be shy.
I'll just pipe in. Hi, I'm John Griffiths, former TV critic at Us Weekly, God help me, and Executive Director of GALECA, the Society of LGBTQ Entertainment Critics. Wilson, thank you so much for doing this and your heartfelt passion. I just got the chills when you were talking about stuff. I could cry right now, you know, over, you know, thank you so much for your passion, and I am going to cry.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, just beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah, what an icon you are in so many ways, but you know, a light, you know. So to you know, get fluffy here, what are some of the shows that impacted you as a kid or teen that, you know, you talk so well about, and with Visible, you showed how important you know, underrepresented imagery and storylines are, why they're so important. What was important to you as a kid, and maybe even life-changing?
All of Norman Lear's career, you know, from the Jeffersons to All in the Family, you know, those shows were so impactful to me because, first of all, they were hilarious. They were well done. There were people of color in them. They tackled issues that were in the headlines, but did it in a way that invited people into the conversation. You know, I was a kid of the 80s, so The Cosby Show, A Different World, to see young people of color allowed to be the stars of shows, the facts of life with, you know, Tootie and all of those girls. Like, I wanted to go to a girls' school. But I mean, like, those shows were my life. Different Strokes, you know. I mean, I was a latchkey kid, right? Like, I was raised by television. So I also remember the hour drama that's now has escaped my head with James Earl Jones. I think it lasted a season. It was the first family drama hour show. I think it was on ABC. It was like Something in the House or something like that. Anyway, but those shows lit something in my head that said, oh, we can be part of the conversation. We can be on television. We can be funny. We can have lives that are taken seriously. But, you know, when you ask me that question, the first thing that comes to mind is that I had to place myself into most of the things I saw on TV, right? I had to extend myself into an experience that was not my own, because most of the time, the stories were about white, straight people. So it was an exercise in empathy. And it's why I've been so passionate my whole career about the fact that we need to expand who gets their stories told. It's why I worked at GLAAD for so many years. And we're starting to see that, and we see the difference it makes in people's lives. So yeah, that's the long and the short of it.
Matt Baume, did you have a question?
I did, yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks for doing this, and also thanks to GALECA and GLAAD and John and Jim and Anthony for putting this together. So I host a podcast about my so-called life, and everyone talks about how important Ricky is to them. And there are a lot of folks who are really eager to speculate about what Ricky might be doing today.
Oh.
And I'm curious if you have any thoughts about where he might find himself.
You know, I think that Ricky Vasquez in some parallel universe is the Christian Siriano of his time, right? Like, I think he is the go-to fashion designer at the Met Gala. I think he hobnobs with stars. I think everyone at Liberty High School cannot believe that the most famous person that came out of their class is Ricky Vasquez. I believe that. I just think there are way too many examples in the world of the Ricky Vasquezes in the world who go on to defy expectation, defy gravity, if you will. And his talent and his passion and all of the things that he went through tell me that A, he was going to use all of that to get the hell out of you know, where they were, forget where they were, what the city was called, the town was called, and B, that all of those people are still in his life. I think Angela and Rayanne and Brian and Delia, all of those people are in his life in some form. That's what I think. And he's living in New York, right there.
Monica, did you have a question? I saw you came off mute for a second.
Yeah, I did. I'd love to know what your sort of dream projects, Monica Trasandes from GLAAD, what your dream projects are, Wilson. What would you love to see with you in it or with someone else?
So many. Well, okay. So at the moment, and you will appreciate this, Monica, a couple of years ago, I was approached by someone who was looking into a project that they thought I would be interested in. And it's been in the back of my head ever since. And I'm dying to know what's going on because I think they have the rights, but to tell the life story of Walter Mercado. which when you look into it, I mean, there's a great documentary about it to really delve into a survivor. You want to talk about a survivor, a man who had to survive being Latino and gay in Puerto Rico and in the world, and failed time and time again, but somehow in the end found success in the least likely way he could have imagined. And did it as flamboyantly as he could possibly do it, and somehow was the love affair of every abuela that saw him. Like everybody in my generation's abuela watched Walter Mercado every day. So, you know, he changed the way that a lot of abuelas and mothers thought about gay people, because they saw him every day. They were part of, he was part of their lives. So there's that. You know, this is risky to say out loud, but I'll say it anyway. I firmly believe there needs to be a feature film, Hollywood film about the life of Prince. And I can't think of a better person to play him. So there's that.
Yes, yes.
Yes. And, you know, yeah, I mean, I'll leave it at that. I mean, you know, the great thing about my career has been that I have somehow, the universe has brought me these roles that they've kind of come to me, and and I like to think that it was the universe. It was something bigger than me that said, okay, you need to fill this. And, you know, they become really important people to me somehow. And they're part of the story that I tell. You know, I look at the roles that I've played, and, you know, they all kind of tell a story when you put them together about resilience and dignity, and a throwing off of shackles of shame, you know, of an idealized version of a gay Latino man in the world. And I'm proud of being able to be the vessel for that. So I'm also just welcoming the universe to present whatever the next chapter of that is going to be. Maybe it's Walter Mercado. I don't know.
Scott, did you want to bring it on home?
Yeah, please. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. Scott Fullerton with Left to Straight podcast. Been a huge fan, Wilson, forever.
Hi, Scott.
Probably one of my favorite entertainment gigs was writing the reviews and the recaps of Red Band Society for Broadway World. That was my favorite series ever. You and Octavia are my two dream actors. So I have to tell you what a great opportunity was that. I loved you in that series. So
I loved that job. Thank
it
you.
was so good. It was so good. I want to talk about the opposite side of what Monica was saying here. Actors are kind of at the whim of other people to get these roles offered. You've been so great behind the scenes doing producing, like your documentaries. I'm very good friends with Stan Zimmerman. He's so appreciative of you doing the Latina X version of Diary of Frank. What stories do you like to see? What kind of attracts you now? What do you like to see getting out there in the world to be able to use your kind of influence to bring out there in the entertainment sphere?
That's a big question, Scott. You know, I think there's so much. I feel like, you know, the stories of our young people are so complex right now. Their experience in the world, this generation of which seems dissatisfied in a way that other generations have not. You know, we've been we were dissatisfied, but they're like, it's a whole different thing. And so, you know, we see shows like Euphoria that kind of capture that. I want to I want us to push even further into telling those stories, into allowing them to have a voice. So, you know, extrapolating their, you know, these shows into a way that we get to see their vision of the world. And I think sci-fi kind of allows for some of that. So there's that. But, you know, I wish I could say that I had, you know, the power right now to create and sell these shows. You know, Visible has given me, the documentary Visible has given me some ability to have influence, if you will, in that world. You know, I'm looking for opportunities to be allowed to produce scripted and fictional content. So, you know, there's still a lot for me to learn, and also for me to be able to do. So I'm not done yet. You know, my journey is, I see maybe I'm at the halfway point. And it's, you know, it's been a long 30 years, but I could see this going on for another 30. And I think part of that is what you're talking about, is bringing scripted, creating stories, and producing that kind of content, and being in it or not.
Well, cheers to 30 more years and beyond.
One final quick question. I did not find out about Noah's Ark: The Runner Chronicles being filmed in Atlanta till well after the time. But what was it like? What was it like reuniting with those cast members? And when will the world be able to see this?
Well, the Rona Chronicles was the one we did during the pandemic. This one, if I remember correctly, don't quote me on this, but I know it's what it was called when we did it, was called The 7-Year Bitch. And it's a great script. We see everybody comes back. And I had one day, I was allowed one, because, you know, I have a big season on Star Trek Discovery this last season, so I was used a lot. And so the producers only afforded me one day to go and film all of my scenes. So I flew down, I worked on the day I flew in, and I flew out like the very next morning back to Toronto. So it was amazing to be back with everybody. To have scenes with Christian, Vincent, and Patrick Polk, and I go back, you know, to my so-called life days. That's how far we go back. So it's always great to see him. And, you know, I adore Daryl Stevens. I just think he's magic. And he's also someone else who has cobbled together a really amazing career through the years. And that hasn't been an easy thing. So yes, any opportunity to go back to that revolutionary story, you know, the first series to really take the lives of queer men of color seriously, and all of the joys and foibles and traumas that lie within. And it's a world that I love to walk back into whenever I get a chance.
Well, that's a great way to wrap up. Just a reminder, I did
want to say one last thing, if I could. You know, it is not lost on me that for many, many years, it was the gay and lesbian press that lifted me up and kept my name out there. And so I'm really grateful for all of the years that you supported me, that you wrote about my projects, or put me in your magazines or your stories. I'm truly, truly grateful. And I just want to make sure I was able to say that before we end it.
Thank you very much for that.
Yes, that is such a nice way to wrap up. And don't forget, everyone, you can catch Wilson on Mother of the Bride, which is on Netflix right now. And of course, the final season, Star Trek Discovery, is happening, streaming right now on Paramount Plus. So cheers to 30 more years.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Wilson.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much,
Thanks,
Wilson.
Anthony.